Hello, welcome back to RP-0 America. So we are in orbit with the Gemini. I just figured I'd show a little bit of the burn, perhaps, or at least record it, even if it doesn't end up in a video. So we set it to align planes. So what that will do, let's see if I remove it. It's basically doing what you would do manually in stock if you've done that as well. So it goes to a descending or ascending node, and then it burns normal. Sorry, normal or radial, one of the two. Apologize, I don't recall exactly which. But it burns to align the orbits. And so that's where it's going to do it. Right now, MechJeb is guessing for me that it's going to be a 7-minute burn. So let us aim. So we want to do it beforehand. In practice, I feel like MechJeb, or at least in my previous experience, didn't bracket the burn well. Let's say it's a 7-minute burn, so about 3.5 minutes of burn before and after the node would be ideal. In practice, I haven't found it doing that. Like, for instance, it's not actually showing because of just the way that the FASA Gemini craft part is built. It has a decoupler option in there as well as an engine. So MechJeb just has a bit more trouble with it than the average part. So there we go, some riveting RCS burn here, and over time we will see that go down. So in practice, if it is actually a 7-minute burn, let us see. I also want to shut this off. So these are the RCS engines which are required to bring us home. So we don't want to use up all that fuel just for these orbital maneuvers. Because while being able to rendezvous and dock would be an amazing space first for our program, getting home is priority number one. Keeping these two astronauts alive and getting them home safely is our top priority. Okay, so see, with time warp it's kind of wobbling a bit, and that's what you'll get, unfortunately. But I feel like at least in play, as long as you make sure you bring a little more RCS fuel than the absolute minimum for what you're doing, it's nice to be able to go to 4x warp and be able to use your service module engines for 4 minutes and only a minute of real time. While we are flying over, what do we got here? Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is huge. Have I ever? No, I've never flown over the Pacific Ocean, although I've seen it, I'm sure. But it is amazingly large. Alright, see, we're nearly done this burn, and as you can see, as time goes on, we're spending the fuel here very slowly. So the real service module for this, it doesn't have a very high thrust, as you can see. A thrust of about around on the order of 2%, 2.5% of a G. But they're still not, they're not terribly inefficient engines. They're fairly safe. They use relatively stable fuel as they can. But you could, if you were building your own craft from scratch, you could put more engines on, or engines with higher thrust, and make these adjustments take less time for you by using more engines or more thrust, or engines with more thrust. All right, so we're mostly aligned. So I'm mostly going to just ignore this by eye now and just watch this until it gets to 0. And then for the real moment of truth, to see how well MechJeb suggests us a home and transfer, because sometimes it doesn't suggest a very nice home and transfer, and other times it suggests an amazing one. And it's a little unclear about why sometimes it's nice and sometimes it's not. So we're 0.03 degrees. Oh, there we go. That's good enough, I suppose. Shut that off. That's probably good enough. So if I tell it to align planes, it will say in practice that we should wait half an hour, and we would be doing a relatively small burn. So we might still end up wanting to do that, but I feel like that's probably close enough. So let's try. So let's see. In practice, I wish we could light it up. Maybe you can. But like right now, because we have a target, it's kind of saying where will our closest points of approach be, our relative ascending and descending nodes. But it doesn't highlight that object if it does at all, it doesn't do it super well. There it is. So it's ahead of us. It has made it to California while we are still very much over the Pacific. And so in practice, so I pulled these up, good. So our orbital period versus the target's orbital period. So it takes us longer to get around the Earth, which is non-ideal. I think it's because we're a little higher here. So I might do a little burn on the target craft to get it higher. Basically, if we have a shorter orbital period, it's because we are on average closer to the Earth, which means we are moving faster, which allows us to catch up. So in practice here, because we have a longer period, it means we're moving slower, relative to the other craft. And it means we'd have to wait, rather than waiting this portion of the Earth's orbit, while we catch up, it would be the reverse. We'd have to wait till it catches up all the way around. So if I tell this to intercept with a Hohmann transfer, well, I've got a target. Come on now. Don't be like that. Maybe 0.03 is not good enough for Mekjev's Rich Blood. And I want to get rid of that craft because it's cramping my style. Alright, so set as target. We have no nodes. Intercept with Hohmann transfer. There we go. So that is clearly an unreasonable Hohmann transfer. One, it says we're going to have to wait 5 days. And two, it's a huge amount of delta V. Like the amount of delta V we just delivered, 90 meters per second, ate a pretty substantial portion of our fuel. So obviously we don't have that, and that's incorrect. Like that would put us really high as well. We kind of want to intercept them with a small burn, because the smaller a burn we have to do in order to match their orbit, we're going to have to do a similar burn to slow down relative to them once we're close to them. Intercept. So sometimes you give it a recalculate and it will just kind of fix, or it'll do it a little differently, but not in this case. So I'm just going to do a couple of little puffs and see intercept with Hohmann transfer, and see it's even worse. It's 3 kilometers, 2.8. Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know quite what the secret is. Maybe I'll have to watch a couple of other people's videos. But if I know the secret or knew the secret, I have forgotten it, because see, it's giving me very very amusing numbers for really anything that it suggests from here. So align planes. All right, so I'll do another plane alignment burn here, and then see if maybe it does give me a better Hohmann transfer. But in practice, it will. If I don't do anything else, it will take many days for, in practice, that to catch up to me, or my target to catch up to me around the Earth. All right, so we are approaching. Oh, that's not me. Of course, that's not me. All right, so sorry, I just need to. There we go. Zoom out so I can see that number better. 10 minutes. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. All right, that's close enough. Actually, we we're swinging around to target it, so that's pretty ideal. And I will kind of try to hit that a little more precisely than I was with the last one, because I was kind of eyeball guesstimating, bracketing that burn time with the previous one. But in this case, I'll try to hit it a little closer, and it is a much shorter burn, so that should be easier. Okay, and so there we go. So I've got the engines on, and it's going to complete that burn pretty quickly, and so I'll try to follow that much closer. Of course, if I was precisely targeting it, I wouldn't have to wander at all, but, mini games. All right, and now at least this says relative inclination is null, and even these you could see the nodes were moving very substantially, because when you have pretty much the exact same relative inclination, the nodes have no real meaning. So those ascending and descending node. So intercept with Hohmann transfer this time. Nope, it still gives me a very angry, very unacceptable number. So in practice, in part why that's doing that is because it's so far out in time, because like I said, the difference of our targetal orbital, so the orbit period of the target craft and our orbit period. In practice, we want our orbit period to be shorter than theirs. So I am going to go switch over to the other craft. Actually, it would be handy if there's a little button in here for that, but that is me. Let me get rid of that, and there it is. All right, switch to. All right, so here I'm going to raise the orbit of, I'm going to tell this craft to also target my other craft now that it's in orbit. And I'm going to raise the orbit a bit, maybe to say 350, to get them pretty close. Like ideally they would both be in nice, happy, perfect circular orbits, but in practice I did not and cannot do that manually very effectively. A lot of my previous very tightly honed skills were simply a result of playing more often than I can play nowadays. So set as target, all right, and so same information, just reversed. So intercept with Hohmann transfer. Also, sometimes you get that information as well. So for some reason, and maybe someone will be able to tell this, explain this to me, but for one craft, if you can actively control both craft, the one that you're if it doesn't matter which one is the target and active vehicle, like in this case, I can technically control this and burn the engine, etc. And if you don't get a nice intercept with home and transfer with one vehicle, go and try the other. In practice, I find that a little unsatisfactory of a solution, but it's a handy workaround. It certainly works. It's just, for example, if you're trying to do a home and transfer to a space station, so you've got, say, a 4-ton craft, and you're trying to send it up to a 70-ton space station, you don't want to get the good suggestion for the space station, where you only need to burn 7.6 meters per second, rather than the little craft that has the RCS fuel, that is kind of made to rendezvous with the other one, and similar with what I actually intend to do later, which is large on-orbit construction. So I'm going to have this, I'm going to have, say, 70 tons thrown to orbit, and then I've added, say, I've done 3 flights, got them together, so I've got this like 200 plus ton monstrosity, and I'm setting up another module. So I don't want it to say, hey, move the thing that's 300 tons that you're going to send to Mars soon to rendezvous with the tiny guy, right? Ideally you want to, it's usually fairly obvious which one is the logical active vehicle or not. But in this case, I could definitely control this one. And historically, I'm pretty sure they're kind of working on, in practice, getting the crew to be able to rendezvous with the other craft. Because imagine an emergent, there are many situations in which, like where the target vessel is truly the target because it's really heavy, or it might not have enough active control to rendezvous with you. Or maybe you're rendezvousing with something that you just don't have control of at all, right? It's like an emergency situation. But anyway, in this case, if we wait 5 days, we will be able to get a rendezvous with that, which I guess I can live with. We do want to keep the crew up for 2 weeks, so I can live with that. So in practice, I should have a Kerbal alarm clock I can set for this. You? No, not you. Come on now. Maybe I didn't. No, I have installed Kerbal alarm clock again. Good. Hooray for me. Yeah, don't care too much about that, about the reconditioning of the pad right now. Okay, so target for maneuver node in 5 days, add alarm, and it's going to, do I want it a little, no, it's such a short burn, and so that's ideal. We want a small burn. So in practice, one route I could go at this point is to raise this craft like I was talking about, and then target it with the other one. But in this case, if I have this option, which is do a small burn with this vehicle to get them home and transferred, and then when they're close, do one other burn with the other vehicle or with this one. So it's two burns to a solution from this point. If I go the other route, it's a burn to get this one into a higher orbit. It's another burn later to do the home and transfer, and then another burn later to get them at the same position and the same velocity. So 2 burns or 3 burns, I'm going to take the 2 burn option. But of course, this is something I'm going to have to practice a lot, or actually finish my script for, if I want to do actual on-orbit construction. I have to get good or script good, one or the other. Yeah, I don't know, sometimes the home and transfers are nice for both vehicles, and I'm not quite sure what the reason is, but I think it's because these orbits overlap, and I always imagine that that's a good thing, that the orbits aren't, like one isn't purely perfectly inside the other one. Because I kind of do some of the home and transfer planning before we actually get to that point. And I think it's probably going to slow us out of time warp to tell us about these, or it's going to want to. That popped up. I don't care about that. So ideally, there we go. Good. It always wants to tell you something about your career mode, and so I'm glad I was able to skip those launchpad reconditioning, because it always just it slows down right before that. And I'm pretty sure in the settings there's a way to adjust backups, transition waiting. So you can change how quickly it does the warp transitions. So like how long it takes to slow down to 1x speed. And I could fiddle with that, but just being able to skip it to not telling me about one of those things is equally good to me. Alright, so it should be slowing down as we approach this time. Hopefully it's noticing it and it's going to slow us for that. Yep, awesome. And it's going to be a pretty short burn. I think I'm going to do it, actually I'll jump to, I also really love this option. Not only do you get the little alarm and warning that you could name yourself and everything, like I do for planetary windows, which I'll need to look at and set up some new ones again soon, but you can just click on it and go jump to craft. Just really nice. I'm not sure why this shows during this loading transition. I think it does show on the video as well. It's for me. Ooh, nice. We're close to a sunset. All right, so let's just close that. We don't need that warning anymore. And it's going to be a fairly short burn. So one reason that I didn't target, so often, particularly in the past, I would, for many missions, I will kind of target the node before going away to time warp for a while, is that actually changing my orbit earlier, like 5-6 days earlier, to target like this, would have actually changed my orbit just a bit and actually affected exactly how big the burn was and when I would need to make the burn. So in a case like this, because Rendezvous is a very, very precise operation. Like the total distance you're traveling around the Earth is immense with a craft, and as such, I just want to see which light setting I have. Oh, fair enough. And so if you make a little adjustment 5 or 6 days earlier, it will have a substantial effect, just 5-6 days down the line. All right, so let's point at this. So there's other numbers that I've added in here that I haven't mentioned yet, but you may have seen them already. So it's telling me how far am I from the target, what is the closest I will be. So if when this Hohmann transfer is performed correctly, this closest approach distance should shrink substantially. Ideally I want it within, say, 5 kilometers or so. And there's an interesting and complicated relationship between these two numbers. Basically, the less you're burning, the better. The more precise a burn you can do at the right time, just the less energy things are going to cost you further down the road. It's kind of like if you're looking at capture burns. If you spend a lot of energy to throw yourself at Mars, it's going to take you, more energy at the other end to... Ooh, weird, it kind of did like a jump. Maybe that's just the camera jumping. It's going to take more energy to do the capture at Mars, because by spending more energy here, generally you'll be flying by Mars at a higher speed, and so the capture will cost more. All right, so we're targeted good. We've got this engine off. Good, so I'm not going to spend a burn. I'm not going to get this big surprise jump of delta V. All right, so let's target ourselves at the target. I could probably tell it to recalculate. It's just I'm nervous that it might not give me the same nice Hohmann transfer that it has here. All right, and so light up the engine, and so now I'll just be kind of navigating by watching these numbers and kind of trying a little to stay precisely on that blue mark. Oh, it is actually suggesting that the Geiger counter from SPAS. Sure, transmit. And I need to get a little practice in with the which one is it? The science transfer, like this one, or no, that's the resource. There's another one that's for transferring science, because in some future missions I'm going to want to transfer science from one vessel to another. So I just want these numbers to become lower. Ideally, these numbers, the lower the better. Now it just made me think of The Martian, because in The Martian they were kind of competing, these two things, because they kind of only had the one burn option. They had to kind of balance it once to get the close approach. They were sacrificing that for the velocity at intercept. And so that can happen to you in this type of situation as well. So that's why I say to just try to target these things as precisely. Follow the orders that the MechJeb gives you. Is my suggestion. So in this case, because we do have delta V in both vehicles, we have a lot of freedom. So it's more important for me that this number is low than that this number is low. Even right now, like it's very feng shuied. We're doing this nice, gentle, slow Hohmann transfer, and so both of these are kind of aligned. They're in agreement. Oh wow. Can I get them closer? Like really, ideally, you'd want them to be very close, and that is very close. Let's say, yeah, like. In practice, with the speed that those engines burn, this engine burns fairly slow. I don't plan to try to use this engine. I feel like that would make it easier, of course. Like I always want to say, why am I doing something? Why am I not doing this other thing, etc. Rather than say, this is the route I'm going to go, and then you're going to watch me do that. So when we're at closest approach, and in this amount of time, in an hour and 16 minutes, we will be that close to each other, and we will be moving at that relative speed. But of course, shortly before we get to this close of a distance, we're going to start burning an engine. So the easiest way to make sure that to actually kill this relative velocity when we're as close as possible would be an instantaneous burn. If I had an engine where bam, I could deliver 119 meters per second of delta V in a moment, then that is exactly the position we would be. in practice, I'm going to be using a very slow service module engine on the Gemini, and I will be guesstimating how long it's going to take it to deliver that delta V, because that's a bit more than the delta V we used to match inclinations. All right. So, but yeah, we've done I've done not too bad so far, which I'm happy with. So I want to switch to the other vehicle. It looks like they're physically fairly close at the moment, so I'm going to switch. Confused. Okay, yep, I'm going to switch over to this guy. So far, so good. So I'm still a bit nervous that potentially the docking mechanisms won't agree because relatively recently, like within the last month or so, 2 months, the docking ports have gone gendered, and so this docking port needs to be correctly set up in relation to the settings for the other docking port in order for them to successfully dock to each other. And I don't know if I've tested that since KSP and Realism Overhaul updated in that way. So hopefully they will dock. If not, I will be disappointed, but I can only be disappointed in myself, since I'm kind of the RP-0 guy who relies and plays the most with FASA. So if that fails, I only have myself to blame, and then I'll have to figure out how to get the gendered parts correct, and might even have to edit if I really want to, edit the save file so that those changes I make are reflected in the craft that I have in orbit. All right, so we've got 1 hour and 15 minutes until these two craft are as close to each other as they can be. So right now, can they see each other or not? Let me close that curve alarm clock. I don't need it anymore. Actually, it might be good to set it for that, but I don't intend to. I currently don't see it floating out in space, but maybe that's just, there's a lot of space around me. In practice, it should be visible. It looks like from this perspective, it should be behind and below me. So if I look at the Earth, this big black mass here, and I look kind of behind me, I'm not seeing it showing up, but fair enough. All right, so I think I'm just going to this will be a short video because so far we've had a good bit of success. I'm just going to end it here, and in the next video, I will be carrying out the rendezvous and docking, hopefully. The rendezvous, at least. We will be nice and close to each other. Ooh, here, let me adjust, because right now it's saying that we're a little further apart than we were last. Really, right now I'm just mashing buttons until this number goes down. Yeah, there we go. All right. So now we're nice and close, and I've got the RCS off, so we're just going to wander to be nice and close to each other. So we will be a couple kilometers away from each other when I begin the next video. So thanks for watching RP-0 America, and we are in the process of the first the first docking ever in our career here, and the first docking that also includes a crew. Goodbye.